Okay, welcome to the High School Student's Guide to a #1 Amazon bestselling authorship, and welcome to the 24-week program that transforms you from a student with an idea into a #1 Amazon bestselling author. This is not a school essay, this is a commercial product that you're building for the global market, and it starts right here, right now. So, the 4 phases of your journey. The Ivy tier program is structured into 4 powerful phases, each building on the last, and every phase has a specific mission, and every week has specific action items, and this is your roadmap. So phase 1, which is the foundations of things, which is week 1 to 4, your mindset, idea validation, audience research, and outlining your books. Your book or your books, you want to write multiple books. Phase 2, which is writing, weeks 5 to 12, setting up your writing environment, drafting and developmental editing. And phase 3, which is the production, weeks 13 to 18, line editing, cover design, formatting, copywriting, and building launch assets. And phase 4, which is your launch, weeks 19 to 24. The Amazon algorithm mastery, street team, social media, launch execution, and your long-term growth over here. So welcome to Ivy tier. Your journey starts over here, and you're about to enter an elite category because 81% of people want to write a book, but less than 1% of people actually do. And by completing this program, you will join the top 1%. As a high school student, that achievement becomes an extraordinary differentiator on your college application. So why write a book? Number 1, you can stand out on your Common App with a unique, completed project. You can build, real-world authority and credibility in your niche. When someone says, they're an author, they have a book, and what even more if you are, #1 bestseller-selling author, that gives you a lot of credibility in doing a lot of things in the future. And you can create passive income streams before college, which is just a bonus and byproduct. But most importantly, you can prove to the admissions committee that you are a spiky student, someone with a rare, ambitious accomplishment over here. And the IB tier promise, we provide the exact blueprint, you provide the dedication. This is not a school assignment with a soft deadline. This is a real commercial product that you're creating for the global marketplace on Amazon. And colleges and readers both love, young, ambitious authors. Your age is not a weakness. It is your most powerful marketing asset. So the key stat, the Ivy League explicitly seeks a spiky student, those with one extraordinary defining accomplishment, and a published Amazon bestseller qualifies for that instantly. So the author identity shift, why you're no longer just a student. The first and most important transformation in this program is mental, Before you write a single word, you must shift how you identify yourself. Starting today, you're not just a student who hopes to write a book someday. You're an author working on your debut book, Number 1, we want to bust the expertise myth. Some people think that you got to be a PhD, you got to be like a doctor, you got to be like gotta run like $1 billion company, you gotta have like 10 years of experience before you can write a book. But the reality is you just gotta be one step ahead of your readers. This is the guide versus guru framework. A 10th grader who has mastered a subject is perfectly qualified to teach a 9th grader, and your lived experience is your credentials. As long as you have put in the time and effort to do the research, testing it like a fine-tooth comb, you are more than qualified to write a book. And number 2, busting the age myth. Readers on Amazon do not know your age unless you tell them, and nobody cares actually. Like a children's book could be written by like a 10-year-old kid, or could be written by a 60-year-old, uncle or auntie, and nobody actually knows or cares. Nobody even knows like who are the authors of the book, what's all their ages and stuff. They only care about one thing, which is, does this book solve my problem or entertain me? And your unique Gen Z perspective is not a handicap. It is highly marketable to both young readers and curious adults. And number 3, imposter syndrome is totally normal. Every author, even best-selling adults, feels like a fraud at some point. And you gotta acknowledge the feeling, then dismiss it, Introduce yourself to a friend or family member saying, hi, I'm your name, and I'm an author. You gotta say it out loud and mean it. Before you become an author, before you become a publisher, before you write a book, you gotta first believe it that you are an author right now. You gotta say it to yourself, repeat to yourself that you're not just an author, you're gonna be an number one Amazon best-selling author, which we're gonna help make it a reality. So defining your why, finding the fuel for the hard days. Writing a 40,000 word book is long, sometimes exhausting, and on the days when motivation fades, your deep why is the only thing that will keep you on the keyboard. Surface level goals crumbles under pressure, only deep motivations endure. So surface level why versus deep whys, Surface level whys could be, I want to make money. A deeper level why could be, I want to make passive income so I don't have to take out massive student loans. Surface level whys could be, I just want to get into college. Deep whys could be, I want to prove to myself that I can finish a, massive long-term project. And the three drivers are, number one, impact. Do you want to change lives or entertain a dedicated readership? Number two, credibility. Do you want to supercharge your college resume with a real accomplishment? And number three, income. Are you building a business or a passive income stream? Your why likely involves all three. Write it down and post it on your monitor. Or write it in a book, write it on your computer, put it on your phone, tell it to your family. So the action item is write your deep why statement in 2 or 3 sentences and post it somewhere visible in your writing space. Read it every time you sit down to write. When the why is powerful enough, the how becomes easy. This is a quote by, I believe, Simon Sinek. So you gotta really understand, why are you doing this? Are you doing this because you want to get into a great college? Are you doing this to make yourself proud, make your family proud? Are you doing this because this is like a first great milestone, a huge project for you to prove to yourself that you're a capable person? So time management for busy students, I don't have time is a myth. The average American teenager spends 7 hours per day on screens. Writing a 40,000 word book requires roughly 80 hours of focus work in total. That's less than 12 days of screen time. You already have, the time exists. The question is whether you choose to redirect it. So the 15-minute sprint method, you can write 250 words in 15 minutes. That's while, waiting for the bus, during a free period, or at, the start of your lunch break. These micro sessions compound, and these 3, 15-minute sprints a day, you can complete a book in under 5 months if you just spend, 15 minutes a day on this. So number one, you got to carve out the 15 minutes a day time slot at least. Number two, you got to block out your calendar like a varsity sport. Treat your writing time with the same non-negotiable seriousness as an AP class or sports practice. Put it on your calendar, give it a time slot, protect it from your social plans and distractions. And if you miss a session, you got to reschedule it. Don't skip it. Allocating time to write a book is very important, and you must get it done. And number three is audit your screen time. Open your phone screen time, iOS on your phone or on an iPhone, or digital well-being on an Android settings right now, and find where your hours are going to right now. Identify 1 hour per day currently spent on passive scrolling, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, whatever social media platform you're on, Facebook, that you'll be able to reallocate to writing. And the math is 1 hour of social media per day replaced by writing equals 1 finished chapter per week. 24 weeks equals 1 complete manuscript. And the sacrifice question: what are you willing to give up for the next 24 weeks? Be specific and honest. Name the things that you're going to sacrifice to make this trade-off real and manageable. In life, there's a very good saying that we can't have it all. We can have anything we want, just not everything at once, So it's all about sacrifice and allocating our time. So week 1, the missions. You're now a CEO. Every week ends with a specific concrete action items. These are not suggestions. They are the deliverables that keep you on pace with the 24-week program. Complete all of them before moving to week 2. So you got to complete the 7-day time audit. Track every hour of your day for 1 week. Use a simple spreadsheet or a notes app. Identify at least 3 blocks of 30 minutes you're currently wasting on passive entertainment. Whether it's like Netflix, watching a movie, watching a TV show, whatever. Number 2 is write your deep why statement. Post it in the Ivy Tier community and on your physical writing space. It should be 2 to 3 sentences that go beyond surface level goals. And number 3 is claim your author identity. Create a dedicated professional author email. This is one way of doing it. You can create a new email, your name, author, your name, book at gmail.com. Set up a dedicated Google Drive folder. Decide whether your real name or your pen name. I mostly suggest using a real name because if the college admission officer Googles your name, search your book on Amazon, and if it's not congruent with your real name, they might get suspicious. And also by claiming your author identity, you gotta repeat to yourself. You gotta print a new image, create a new photo of yourself. You can use AI to just tell yourself that, hey, you're stepping to this new identity, that you are right now an author. You're a book author, you're a book publisher, and you're gonna be a number 1 Amazon best-selling author or publisher as well. This is who you're gonna be. And number 4, declare your author status. Tell at least one friend or family member you're gonna write a book. This creates social accountability and makes your goals real. So complete the time blocking worksheet and schedule 3 writing blocks for next week. And let's move on to the next one. So right now we're gonna find your golden idea, which is where passion meets profit. Here's the core truth of Amazon publishing success. We do not write a book and hope it sells. We find out what is already selling and write a book to meet that proven demand. When it comes to creating a new product, service, book, whatever it is, unless you're Steve Jobs and you're gonna reinvent something that people don't know they already want, or you're like Henry Ford, who's gonna create cars where people only think they need faster horses. For when you're just starting out, we do not want to reinvent the wheel. We want to find existing demand and insert ourselves in the middle of it, So Amazon is not a library, it's a search engine. And if nobody is searching for your topic, your book will not sell, no matter how brilliantly it is written. So this is zone 1, which is your passion, your hobby book, your interests, your skills, what you don't mind doing research on. Number 2, the demand, which is the cash grab. This is where people are gonna buy. And number 3 is the golden idea, which is in the middle, which is what you're passionate about and what has high demand that you can create for. So the goal of week 2 is to find your zone 3 golden ideas, the intersection of what you genuinely love writing about and what readers are actively searching for and buying on Amazon right now. So for this, you can write down a few passions, interests of yours, skills of yours, strengths of yours, what you want, your curiosity, what you want to learn more about, and then we can move on to the next step. So what kind of book will you write? Exploring your genre options. Before you dive into market research, it helps to understand the broad categories available to you. Pick the genre you already read heavily. So let's say if you read a lot of fiction books, it shows that number 1, that is where you're interested in, your curiosity is lies on, and that might be where your brain structure is more leaning towards, where that is your strengths. Or do you read more non-fiction books? Maybe you're someone who likes facts more, that is how your brain is wired, and that gives you an instinctive understanding of reader expectations that no amount of research can fully replicate. So fiction books are like YA, fantasy, sci-fi, romance, thriller. If you're not sure what one of this is, you can Google it to see what the genre is about, see the example books. This requires strong plotting, character development, and genre convention knowledge. High emotional reward for both writers and readers. The second category, you have non-fiction books. These are like how-to guides, study guides, college preps, hobby guides, relies on clear structure, actionable steps, and a defined promise. It's often easier to write and market for first-time authors. Number 3, you have memoir, essays, your personal journey, or overcoming a specific challenge. As a young author, a compelling personal story can be extremely marketable and authentic. Memoirs are usually, written by, let's say, ex-partners of very famous celebrities, billionaires, artists, or it could be, people who survived a certain war, escaped North Korea, for example. And lastly, you have low content books. These are journals, planners, activity books, and workbooks. And these rely on interior design and cover art rather than massive word counts. It's great for a first quick win while you develop a longer manuscript. So the Amazon KDP Research 101, using Amazon as a search engine. Amazon's search bar is the most powerful free market research tool on the planet. Every autocomplete suggestion represents a real search phrase typed by a real potential customer right now. And this is how we validate demand before writing a single word. So Amazon functions like Google, when there are millions of people typing a certain keyword, for example, like cooking book, then Amazon will auto-suggest, cooking book, for example, cooking book for moms, cooking book for dummies, whatever. That depends. Let's say 100 people typing cooking books on Amazon, but 80% of them will complete it by typing Amazon cooking books for dummies. That's how most of the demand is going for cooking books for dummies, not just cooking books, So the auto-suggest trick step by step. Open Amazon on incognito or private mode to avoid personalized algorithm skew right now. Select Kindle Store or Books from the drop-down menu. Then type in a seed word, for example, it could be cooking books, could be, fantasy books, whatever it is. Study the autocomplete suggestions. These are exact, phrases real customers are searching for right now. Record every relevant phrase in your keyword research tracker spreadsheet right now. And that is how this is where the demand is going, For example, you want to write a book on physics. It could be space, you just type in over there, about physics. Then it could be the order, maybe a lot of people will be searching, physics for kids, physics for teenagers, physics for adults, physics 101. And that is where, the demand is being channeled over there. Number 2, the BSR cheat sheet. This is the bestseller ranks BSR, which appears in the product detail section of any book on Amazon. So you click on any book on Amazon, it would have the BSR rank over there. It tells you exactly how many copies are being sold per day. If the BSR is between 1 to 10,000, it means hundreds of copies per day are being sold, which is really highly competitive. If it's 10 to 50,000, 5 to 15 copies per day are being sold, the sweet spot. And if it's 50 to 100,000, where the BSR is, 1 to 5 copies per day is being sold, modest demand. If the BSR is above 100,000, maybe 1 copy per day is being sold, which indicates low demand. So look for niches where the top 3 books all have a BSR under 100,000. This confirms real consistent demand before you invest weeks of writing. And to be safe, you can look for a niche or category on Amazon where the top 3 books, the number 1, number 2, and number 3, has a BSR of below 50,000. That means that in that category that you're after, the top selling books over there has a lot of people buying it per day. So I'll give you an example over here. On the left, you can see, when I type in cooking, these are the Amazon auto-suggested keywords, cooking for 1, cooking for 2, cooking book, cooking for kids, cooking for dummies. These are the auto-suggested. And on the right, when I click on a book, you can see that this book, which ranks number 11 on vegetable cooking, its BSR is bestseller rank is 16,500 on Amazon, which is a good thing. It shows that 5 to 15 copies are being sold per day. So pause this video, do this right now to research about your niche. So let's talk about the 3-star review trick. finding the gap in the market. So your future bestseller is hidden inside your competitors, most honest reader reviews. Here's the counterintuitive truth, the 5-star reviews are too biased. These are people who would say a good thing, no matter how it goes. The 1-star reviews are often from trolls or people who would never be satisfied. The gold mine is in the 3 and 4-star reviews, where readers tell you exactly what they wish the book had included, So what to look for? Scan 3-star and 4-star reviews of the top selling books in your niche. Search for phrases like, I wish it had more of this, it didn't cover this, the author, skip over this, would have liked a chapter on this. Every complaint is a feature request for your book. And this is how, you can just copy paste all the reviews, 3 and 4-star reviews from a book, and put it on a Google Doc. Then you can upload this to AI like ChatGPT to analyze the sentiment and what is lacking. So if you copy all the 3 and 4-star reviews, let's say like a couple of dozen, from like top 3 to 5 books of your competitors, upload to AI, it would tell you, what is lacking and what, you can include and what you can improve. So the strategy is write the gap book. Once you have identified recurring complaints across multiple competitors, you have a very clear brief. Write the book that fills the exact gap. This strategy means your book is market validated before you write word 1. You're not guessing what readers want, you're building what they have explicitly asked for and validating your idea. So ask these 3 questions before declaring your golden idea. Are there similar books selling well, BSR under 100,000? Are indie authors, not just major publishers or celebrities, succeeding in your niche? And lastly, can you offer unique, better cover or a missing topic? If yes to all 3, you have a clear winner. So you can go to the 3 and 4-star review section of your top competitors' books over here. And the target audience and avatar. If you write for everyone, you write for no one, You cannot write a compelling book until you know exactly whose life you're going to change or entertain. And one of the most common mistakes first-time authors make is trying to appeal to the broadest possible audience. On Amazon's algorithm, broad appeal is actually a liability. The algorithm, doesn't even know who to show your book to if you don't have a specific laser targeted person you're going after. So the demographic, the hard data, the age, grade level, gender identity, geographic location, education level, income level, are they buying the book themselves, or are they like a parent, a spouse, a partner, a boyfriend, girlfriend, buying it for someone else? This completely changes your marketing strategy. And psychographics, the emotional data. What keeps them awake at 2 a.m.? Their fears, pain points, what is their ultimate desired outcome, goals and dreams, what other authors do they read, what YouTubers do they watch, what specific language and slang do they use. Mirror this language in your book's copy for instant connection. And where do they hang out? Subreddits, TikTok hashtags, Instagram accounts. Remember, the riches are in the niches, niche down until it hurts. It's not just a fitness book, but a home workout guide for busy high school athletes. And for example, it's not just writing a cooking book, but writing a cooking book for a mom who have many children and only have like 30 minutes to spare that is not time urgent, for example. And the more specific you are, the more powerfully you'll connect. So when it comes to the demographic and psychographics, one of the best ways is to check the reviews. Number 2 is look at the social media profiles of these books and these authors, and AI would analyze for you to see, who are these types of people, who are following these people. So the 1% rule and the transformation journey. The most powerful writing technique for connecting with your audience is devastatingly simple. Write to one specific named person. Give your ideal reader an avatar name. Sci-fi Sarah or stress senior Sam. Keep their profile near your writing space and address every sentence directly to them. Point A, where they are right now. Your reader arrives at your book frustrated, confused, unentertained, or stuck. They have a specific problem that they cannot solve on their own, and they're actively searching for a solution. That is their current painful reality. Your book is the bridge. Your book is not just a collection of information, it is a vehicle for transformation. Every chapter, every section, every lesson should move your reader one step closer to point B. And if a section doesn't serve the journey, it gets cut. Point B, where they'll be. After reading your book, your reader is empowered, skilled, entertained, or transformed. They have achieved the outcome that they were searching for when they click buy now. The transformation is your product. Sell the destination, not the journey. So whether you're writing a fiction or non-fiction book, your avatar is at point A. Your book is a bridge to bring them to point B of where they want to be, whether it's being educated, informed, or whether it's being entertained. And for fiction books, readers come to a specific genre for specific emotional experiences and specific, imagination called tropes. So romance readers expect, enemies to lovers, or fake, dating. Fantasy readers expect the chosen one, or, magic school. You must identify the top 3 tropes your avatar expects and guarantee that they are delivered in your book. So the bestseller blueprint, mastering the outline. The number one reason, authors quit halfway through their manuscript is really simple. They did not outline. Without a roadmap, you'll eventually reach a point where you don't know what comes next. And that's when, writer's block sets in permanently, and outline is your insurance policy against, quitting. So the pantsers versus applauders. A pantser writes by the seat of the pant, making it up as they go. A plodder outlines before they write. For a first book, you always want a plot. Because pantsing leads to massive plot holes, wasted chapters and eventual abandonment. An outline can change, but you must start with one. And the speed advantage. A strong outline makes the actual writing phrase, 5 times faster because you have never, have to ask, what happens next. You sit down, open the outline, and write the next scene or section. The creative heavy lifting has already been done. And this is a living document. Your outline is not a rigid contract. It is a living, breathing document that evolves as you write. So characters will surprise you, better ideas will emerge, and this outline, the outline's job is to keep you not from getting lost and not to trap you in bad decisions, so that you don't get lost, you don't get trapped in, not knowing what to do and whatnot. When it comes to writing fiction books, this is, the fiction outlining, the save the cat beat sheet. So Hollywood has spent a century figuring out the exact story structure that keeps audiences engaged from minute 1 to the credits. The save the cat beat sheet is that formula, and it works equally well for novels. Map your favorite movies to those beats and you'll be amazed at how universal they are. So Act 1, the setup, the opening image, theme stated, setup, the normal world, the catalyst, including the incident, the debate. Act 2A, fun and games, break into Act 2, B story, subplot, romance, fun and games, the promise of the premise, midpoint, false victory or defeat. Act 2B, all is lost, the bad guys close in, all is lost moment, dark night of the soul. And Act 3, the finale, break into Act 3, the finale, the new plan executed, final image, mirror of opening, delivery on every promise made in Act 1. So when it comes to non-fiction outlining, the brain dump, the PAS method, and the chapter anatomy. So step 1, the brain dump and sort. Write down every single thing you know about the topic on a digital, sticky note or multiple of the notes. Use, Miro, Trello, Google Doc. Don't filter or judge, just dump it in. Then group similar ideas into buckets. These become your chapters, modules. Order them logically, chronologically, beginner to advanced, or problem to solution. The sticky notes inside each bucket becomes your chapter subheadings. Step 2, the PAS framework, which is problem, identify the reader's specific pain point, agitate, explain why it's so frustrating or harmful, make them feel the pain, and finally solve it. Provide your unique solution through your chapters. This framework is the backbone of every compelling non-fiction book. And the perfect, chapter structure. Every chapter should follow this proven anatomy. The hook, 10%, a personal story, shocking statistic, or bold claim to grab their attention on page 1. Then the concept, 20%, explaining the theory of what you're teaching, why it matters. then the application, the step-by-step how-to. This is, the meat that readers pay for. And finally, the action step, the final 10%, a specific task the reader must complete before turning the page. So this creates, accountability and makes your book, feel interactive. And this is how you structure for each chapter over here. So using AI as an outlining assistant, your brainstorming buddy. AI tools like ChatGPT and Claude are legitimate, powerful outlining partners when used ethically. The key distinction, AI is a brainstorming tool and a structural assistant. It is not your ghostwriter. Your voice, your experiences, your unique perspective must remain the dominant force in the manuscript. And Amazon requires disclosure of AI-generated content, AI-assisted content. Using AI for structured and ideas, requires, no disclosure. That's why we use AI for the structures and ideas and not for it to write our entire book for us. So the fiction prompt, if you're using AI to write a fiction book, type this into AI. Here's the outline for my, YA, young adult thriller or whatever niche you're writing. Analyze it for, pacing issues, plot holes, or weak character motivations. Suggest 3 ways to raise the stakes at the midpoint. Then number 2, you have the non-fiction prompt. Here's the table of content for my books on, this certain topic. What crucial beginner questions am I missing? Is the logical flow correct for a complete beginner? And when it comes to a genre outline prompt, you can just say, act as an expert, whatever genre author, help me outline a 10-chapter book about this topic. For this audience, suggest chapter, titles and 3 key points per chapter. So this is how you use AI to brainstorm. You first, gather and have some raw materials. You put it to AI and it gives you better ideas and outline. So the ethics reminder, always refine and personalize AI suggestions with your own stories, examples, and voice. What is the difference between a few books? It's always the personal anecdotes, the personal stories, experiences, that people encounter that makes a story unique, because sometimes, you can say the same thing in a lot of books are sort of regurgitating the same thing, but the unique difference is they use different examples. So that's how you differentiate. An AI generated outline is a starting point, not a finished product. So setting up your writing environment and systems. The goal of week 5 is to eliminate all friction between you and the blank page. Professional authors don't rely on motivation. They rely on systems, environments, and triggers that make writing the path of least resistance. So the professional, tech stack, word processors. Google Doc is fine to start, but, these 2 apps, you can see over here, and I don't want to mispronounce how they're pronounced, are purpose built for book length projects with binary systems that keep chapters organized. Then you want to add the distraction blockers. Use Freedom or Cold Turkey to block social media during writing blocks. Use cloud backup, the rule of 3. Save your manuscript locally to Google Drive and to an external hard drive. Never lose a single chapter. The writing cave psychology. Create Pavlovian triggers that train your brain when the specific playlist start and the specific, candles, lit writing begins. Use lo-fi video game soundtracks or Brain FM. Set clear boundaries, with family during sprints. The environmental setup conditions, your brain to enter flow state on demand. And finally, the minimum viable word count. Set a non-negotiable daily MVC. Let's say like 250 or 500 words. 250 words a day, equals 45,000 word book in 6 months. Use the Seinfeld, don't break the chain method. Mark an X on a calendar every day you hit your MVC. The chain becomes a powerful psychological motivator, and consistency beats, binge writing every time. So AI-assisted drafting, the modern author's edge. AI is the most powerful writing productivity tool to authors today, but the difference between AI-assisted, which is excellent, and AI-generated problematic is critical, Amazon requires disclosure of AI-generated content and may penalize books that are simply AI outputs, So your voice must remain the dominant force. the prompt stacking framework. Structure every AI prompt with 4 components. Number 1, the role: act as a best-selling whatever genre author. Give it context. I'm writing a chapter whether it's for fiction, non-fiction, whatever. The task, give me 5 sensory details of the environment. The tone, make the tone eerie, suspenseful, and fast-paced. And beating writer's block with AI. The what happens next prompt. Feed your last 3 paragraphs and ask for 3 possible scene directions. The dialogue doctor. Make this dialogue sound like an angry teenager, less formal. And finally, show don't tell. Take he was sad and ask AI to rewrite using body language only. So these are all the different prompts that you can play around with AI. And when it comes to world building and research, when it comes to fiction books, generate character names, town history, or magic system rules instantly with AI to get together ideas. When it comes to non-fiction books, you can get it to summarize the top 3 studies. You can use AI apps like Perplexity to summarize the top 3 studies on teenage sleep deprivation with citations, for example. And always verify with the AI facts. Sometimes AI can give wrong information, hallucinate, give wrong citations, so use it for direction but not as a primary source. Always verify what AI gives you. So the sprint phase and finishing the draft. Weeks 7 to 10 are about one thing: getting words on a page. The Pomodoro method, structured chapter techniques, and the vomit draft mindset are your 3 weapons against perfectionism and procrastination. So the Pomodoro writing sprint, the 25/5 rule: 25 minutes of furious typing followed by a 5-minute break. Rules of the sprint: no editing, no backspacing, just keep typing. No looking up facts. Use insert the fact here as placeholder to remind yourself, but just keep writing. Track your words per hour to gamify the process and beat your personal record each session. Next is the vomit draft mindset. Your first draft, only job is to exist. The first draft is that, you're telling yourself the story. By this guy, Terry, who said this, do not go back to chapter 1 to fix a plot hole. The first draft is just for you to get it out. And then you want to make a note in a separate document and keep, writing forward. You cannot edit a blank page. So keep writing, these are the key writing techniques by the genre. So if you're writing a fiction book, avoiding the messy, middle. Use a midpoint, reversal, a major plot twist that changes your protagonist's goal and re-energizes both writer and reader. The dialogue. If you have a dialogue scene, cut all greetings and goodbye. Give each character distinct speech patterns so that they sound different. Use action beats instead of dialogue tags. And all these, you can put into AI to prompt it. And thirdly, non-fiction chapter hooks. Start every chapter with a story, statistic, or bold claim, and with a clear action step. And finally, typing the end. This is a milestone 97% of people who want to write a book never achieve. When you do it, celebrate, then put the manuscript in a digital drawer for 7 full days. So the cool down and developmental editing. Fixing the foundation, not the paint. After typing the end, you're currently snowblind to your own writing. Stepping away for a full week allows you to return and read your manuscript as a reader, not as an author. And the perspective shift is non-negotiable for professional quality writing. The read-through protocol, week 11. Change the font, print it out, send it to a Kindle to make it look unfamiliar. Read the entire book without stopping to fix anything. Keep a notebook beside you solely for, macro issues, pacing problems, missing information, plot holes, confusing logic. Do not edit the grammar or typos yet. Then you go to developmental editing, week 12. This is, structural surgery, not cosmetic work. We are fixing, plot holes, character arcs, pacing, chapter order, and logical flow. Use the reverse outline technique. Create a spreadsheet, write a 1-sentence summary of each chapter, then review whether the progression makes logical sense and whether, stakes are escalating or not. Then finally, you have your beta readers, your high school advantage. Beta readers are target audience members who read your early draft for free. Do not use your mom or best friend because they are too nice to give honest feedback. You want to recruit from your English class, book clubs, or online writing groups. Reddit's beta readers is excellent over here on Reddit, this Reddit subreddit thread, and give them a structured beta reader questionnaire with specific questions like, where did you get bored? Was the ending satisfying? Which character annoyed you? So the final polish: line editing and copy editing. The developmental edit fix your story structure. Now we fix the sentences. This is where amateur writing becomes professional publishing. Never skip straight to proofreading because you don't want to perfectly punctuate a boring flabby sentence. We gotta edit things in its correct order. So the read aloud protocol: your brain autocorrects missing words when reading silently. Reading aloud bypasses this. Every time you stumble over a sentence, rewrite it. And the tech hack is use Microsoft Word read aloud feature or text to speech app to have a robot read your book for you, and you will instantly hear clunky dialogues or repetitive phrasing. Next is you want to eliminate crutch words and passive voice. Control F your crutch words and delete 50% of every instance that has like just, really, very, that, suddenly, started to, began to, the was, were, hunt. The passive, the ball was thrown by John, and change it to active, John threw the ball. Show versus tell, she was sad, she wiped her eyes and stared at the floor, for example. And your digital editorial team, Pro Writing Aid, Grammarly, run your manuscript through premium grammar checkers. Don't accept every suggestion. Maintain your voice. Use Hemingway. Check readability grade level. Aim for 6 to 8 grade for mass market appeal. And AI prompt: act as a strict, copy editor. Review this chapter for passive voice, repetitive sentence structures, and grammatical errors. This is how you get AI to check for you as well. So the title and subtitle formula, the hook that stops the scroll. A brilliant book with a bad title will not sell. There's this rare famous author, Tim Ferriss. Before he had his very famous 4-Hour Work Week book that sold millions of copies, he had a different title, and I forgot what the exact thing was, but he posted and did like a test run, and it was really obvious that the 4-Hour Work Week title surpassed his previous title that was pretty boring. So just by changing your title, it could really make or break your book, So your title is your first and often only marketing asset. It has one job: make the reader stop scrolling and click the cover. It must work in 1 second. Add thumbnail size on a mobile phone screen, because nowadays most people on their mobile phones, And people really judge a book by its cover, unfortunately, unless you're like a super big celebrity or influential figure, So non-fiction, the SEO subtitle formula. The title is for the human catchy, so you gotta be catchy. These subtitles for the algorithm, using keywords. One formula is results plus target audience plus time frame plus objection outcome, overcome. And the example could be the study, the title could be study, study smart. The subtitle could be, the high school's guide to acing exam in half the time without pulling all-nighters. So this is an example, where you have the result and target audience plus the time frame, and overcoming the objection for your subtitle. And ensure your main Amazon search keywords are embedded in the subtitle. Amazon indexes subtitle, text for search. So when it comes to fiction books, you want to evoke the genre, the noon of noun trend, a court of thorns and roses. You gotta know your genre's current naming conventions. You gotta see how other books name it. It could be character plus world, Percy Jackson and the Olympians. It could be an intriguing statement, they both die at the end. And you can A/B test your title. Never fall in love with just one title. Brainstorm at least 20 options, narrow it to your top 3, then run a Google form or Instagram story poll with your actual target audience, not just your friends or family. Ask, which of these books would you buy, let the market decide. And you can even go to a book fair. You can, just have the exact same book but 2 different titles and see which, people pick more. There's a lot of creative ways that you can A/B test your title for free. So the cover design mastery, people absolutely judge a book by its cover. A professional cover is non-negotiable. Most readers will see your first cover on a mobile phone screen where it is the size of a postage stamp. And if the title is not, legible to be read at the thumbnail size, the cover fails. So your cover must communicate the genre, the tone, and the quality in under 1 second. So for example, thriller, dark fiction, dark colors, bold, sans serif fonts, running or shadowed figures, create immediate tension and intrigue. High contrast is essential at thumbnail size. When it comes to romance book, bright or pastel colors, script, cursive fonts, illustrated characters or couples immediately, signals warmth and emotional connections. When it comes to non-fiction books, clean, minimalist, layout, bold typography, simple iconography, it all communicates authority, clarity, and professionalism at a glance. And even with non-fiction or fiction books, every genre is different. For example, if it's a marketing book, it gotta market really well, If it's a biography book, it gotta, have the person's face at the front. So you gotta study the top books in your niche to see what are the commonalities between the covers and titles of the top best-selling books in your niche. So budget reality, a professional cover on, Okay, cover design mastery. So people absolutely judge a book by its cover, no matter how much we like it, because nobody is gonna be able to read the content before they buy the book. They look at the cover, the book, the reviews, they buy it, then only they read it. So a professional cover is non-negotiable. Most readers will first see your cover on a mobile phone screen, not on a laptop. So you gotta keep that in mind, where it is the size of a postage stamp. And if the title is not legible to be read in thumbnail size, the cover fails. And your cover must communicate genre, tone, and quality in under 1 second. So for example, if it's a thriller dark fiction book, it can be dark colors, bold, sans serif font, running or shadowed figures, creates immediate tension and intrigue. High contrast is essential at thumbnail size. If it's a romance novel, bright or pastel colors, script, cursive font, illustrated characters or couples immediately signals warmth and emotional connections. And non-fiction books, clean, minimalist layout, bold typography, simple iconography, communicates authority, clarity, and professionalism at a glance. So these are just certain examples when it comes to non-fiction, fiction books. But the best way to do it is look at the top 10, 20 books in your genre and see what they have in common when it comes to titles and covers. Because for example, a non-fiction marketing book would be really bold and outstanding, because it's a marketing book, so you gotta market itself in a bold and outstanding and catchy way. Versus if it's a biography, it would feature the person's face, which is half or 3/4 or the entire book. Like the Steve Jobs biography, it's his entire face on the entire book, So budget reality, a professional cover can cost around $50 or $150, and this is the single best investment you make in your book. Do not DIY a fiction cover unless you are a trained graphic designer. So formatting for Kindle and print, the invisible art. good formatting is invisible. Bad formatting results in 1-star reviews that say, unreadable and weird spacing. So formatting is the difference between a manuscript that looks self-published and one that looks professionally produced. Industry standard tools, this tool over here, it's the modern standard, cloud-based, exports perfect EPUB and PDF, it's highly recommended. Then you have Vellum, the Mac only gold standard, premium price, perfect result. Then you have Reedsy, Kindle Curate, free alternatives for beginners. Then you have the KDP templates, free Word templates from Amazon. It's harder to use, but it's free. Then you have the paperback formatting rules. Trim size 6:9 is standard, and non-fiction, 5:8, all these parameters. Then you have the you have the paperback and the Kindle. Kindle is the one where people read on the Amazon Kindle. It's the ebook versus print. Paperback, where Amazon prints the book for you. And for this, you do not, print your own book yourself. You upload your manuscript and Amazon prints the book for you. So over here you can see the gutter, the inside margin must be wider than outside so the text doesn't disappear into the spine. Justification, book text should be justified, flush on both sides, not left aligned, orphans and widows. Never leave a single word or line isolated at top or the bottom of a page. And the front and back really matters. The front, the title page, copyright page, dedication, table of contents, the back, the money maker, about the author, and a call to action asking for a review and linking to your email list. So the book description, the cover gets a click, the description gets a sale. So a synopsis tells the entire story. A blurb is a commercial designed to create an information gap that can only be closed by buying the book. You have approximately 3 seconds to hook the reader before they click away, and your first sentence must be bolded and work as a standalone hook. So the fiction blurb formula. Paragraph 1, the hook introduced the protagonist and their normal world in 2 to 3 vivid sentences. Paragraph 2, the inciting incident, the event that destroys their normal world. Paragraph 3, the stakes, what terrible things will happen if they fail. And paragraph 4, the cliffhanger, and with a dramatic and answered, question. Will Sarah survive the trials, or will the darkness consume her? Then when it comes to the non-fiction blurb formula, the hook, state the reader's biggest pain point as a direct question. Are you tired of studying for 5 hours and still getting C's? Empathy, show you understand their exact frustration. The promise, bullet, pointed list of specific benefits. Inside you discover, bullet 1, 2, 3. Call to action, scroll up and click buy now to transform your grade today. So pro tip, use Kinderpreneurs, book description generator to format your description with HTML, bold hooks, italicized emphasis, and white spaces to make your page look premium versus competitors. So the book description, the cover gets a click, the description gets a sale. A synopsis tells the whole story. A blurb is a commercial designed to create an information gap that can only be closed by buying the book. So, your cover and the design and the title gets people to click on it. The description is like the landing page and copy that converts somebody. It creates enough intrigue and curiosity that makes somebody want to buy and converts them. You have approximately 3 seconds to hook the reader before they click away. So your first sentence must be bolded and work as a standalone hook. So if you're writing a fiction book, paragraph 1, the hook, introduce the protagonist and their normal world in 2 to 3 vivid sentences. Paragraph 2, the inciting, incident, the event that destroys their normal world. Paragraph 3, the stakes, what terrible thing would happen if they fail. Paragraph 4, the cliffhanger, and with a dramatic unanswered question. Will Sarah survive the trials, or will the darkness consume her? Then you have the non-fiction blurb formula. The hook, state the reader's biggest pain point as a direct question. Are you tired of studying for 5 hours and getting C's? For example. Then you have the empathy. Show you understand your exact frustration. Then you have the promise, bullet pointed list of specific benefits. Inside you discover, bullet 1, 2, 3. Then finally, you have the call to action, which is, scroll out and click buy now to transform your grades today. So pro tip, use our book description generator to format your description with HTML. Bold hooks, italicized emphasis, and white spaces make your page look premium versus like your competitors. So building your launch asset, preparing the ammunition. The weeks before launch are all about building every asset you need. For the week 22 blitz, a book launch too silent will fail, but the most successful book launches are executed campaigns, not spontaneous announcements. So the lead magnet, you do not own your Amazon customers, Amazon does. You must capture their emails, and a lead magnet is a free digital gift offered in a book in exchange for an email address. So if it's a fiction book, the bonus epilogue, prequel, short story, or character, art. If it's a non-fiction book, printable workbook, cheat sheets, or video training, set out a free, mailer-lite landing page to collect these emails. Then you have the A+ content and 3D mockups. Amazon A+ content allows you to put beautiful graphics in a form, from the publisher section of your books page. Use Canva to create 3D book mockups, showing your book on an iPhone, iPad, or physical paperback. Highlight, key quotes or 5-star reviews in these graphics to make your page look premium. And the ARC strategy, a book with 0 reviews will not sell. An advanced review copy ARC is a free early copy given to readers in exchange for an honest review on launch day. So target, 10 to 20 ARC readers. It could be your friends, your family friends. Use BookFunnel or Story Origin for to safely distribute your EPUB without piracy risk. The goal is 10 to 15 verified reviews on day 1. So next is mastering the Amazon algorithm and the KDP setup. So Amazon's not a bookstore, it's a search engine, and its only goal is to show customers books that they are most likely to buy. And understanding how the A9 algorithm works means your book can be visible to millions of buyers without spending $1 on advertising. So the 3 pillars of Amazon's A9 algorithm. Number 1, the conversion rate. When people see your book, do they buy it? The cover, title, description, these are your levers. When people, click on your book, the velocity of them clicking and purchasing it affects the algorithm on Amazon suggesting your book. Next, you got the relevance. Does your title, subtitle, and keywords match what the customers actually search? And the sales velocity, as I mentioned, how many copies are being sold in the last 24 hours. And the golden rule is if there's 100 sales in one day, that beats 10 sales per day for 10 days when it comes to ranking. So the 7 backend keyword strategy. KDP gives you 7 keyword boxes with 50 characters each. Use them for long tail keywords. For example, college prep guide for high school seniors, not just college. Do not repeat, words already in your title or subtitle. Use publishers Rocket, Helium 10 or Amazon Auto Suggest to find profitable low competition phrases. And finally, you have the category hacking for the number 1 banner. So the number 1 bestseller orange banner is given to any number 1 book in any subcategory, no matter, how niche. So avoid massive categories like, non-fiction education. Instead, choose hyper-specific categories like, teen and young adults, to science fiction, to dystopian. And the secret is, email KDP support to add your book to up to 10 additional hidden categories. So the pricing strategy, the 99-cent launch. Your pricing strategy during launch week is a deliberate sacrifice of a short-term royalties for long-term ranking. Once your book is ranking well, you raise the prices and collect 70% of royalties on every sale. And this is the same strategy used by professional indie artists worldwide. So the post-launch is, $2.99 to $9.99. Right after you launch, it maximizes the 70% royalties once the book is ranking. This is the typical pricing you want to put your book between $3 to $10. You've earned the visibility, now to profit from it. Then you have week 2. So actually we should go from bottom up. Launch week, we set your book price at 99 cents. It removes all friction for buyers, maximize sales velocity, and triggers Amazon's algorithm to push your book to its top category, to the top of the category that you're in. And every cent counts. less than every rank gain. When you're first launching, the ranking is way important than how much you earn. And week 2, you raise the price to $1.99. You transition the price as momentum continues, sustain ranking while beginning, to recover royalties. And finally, you can set your book price to the original price where you collect royalties to make the money. So the paperback pricing, set your paperback at a competitive, market rate, $12.99 to $16.99 from day one. Paperback pricing is about profit, not ranking velocity. Whereas the one above it, which is the launch week from 99 cents to $9.99, $10, that is for your KDP, your Kindle, ebook. Whereas paperback, that is your hardcover. That one you can set it to the $12.99 to $16.99. So assembling your street team, your personal marketing army. A book launched to silence will fail. You'll need a dedicated group of 20 or 50 people committed to buying your book for 99 cents on launch day and leaving a verified review. And Amazon prioritizes reviews from people who actually purchase through the platform. These are called verified, purchase reviews, and they carry more algorithmic weight. So the direct outreach method, posting buy my book on your Instagram story converts less than 1%. Direct messaging or texting individuals, convert at 40 to 50%. Make a list of 100 contacts, message them individually. Personalizing the first sentence, tell them exactly what you need. A 99, purchase and a 2-sentence review on Tuesday, the 14th. Then you have the book fair method. By turning book sales into events like talks, workshops, and signings, you build credibility, reach more students, and create world impact. And this transforms a simple book into a measurable achievement with distribution, audience reach, and proof, making it more powerful for college applicants. Then you have managing the team. You can create a private Facebook group, Discord server, or group chat for your street team. Give them behind the scenes access. Cover reveals. Chapter snippets, voting on character names. When you feel like co-creators, they are emotionally invested in the book's success and will promote it organically. These are like your ambassadors of your books, where they are, they feel that they are part of the journey and part of the book as well. Then finally, you have authority hacking, endorsements and forwards. As a high schooler, having an adult authority figure to endorse your book is powerfully, credibility building. As a teacher, principal, or industry expert to write a 1-page forward. And the pro tip is write a draft of the endorsement for them and ask if they would sign it. Make it as easy as possible for them to say yes. So social media and pre-launch hype, the book talk and bookstagram revolution. So TikTok, book talk is currently the number one driver of fiction and young adult book sales globally. You don't need to dance, you don't need to talk about tropes, aesthetics, and the emotional experience of your book. Here's exactly how to create content that builds a buyer audience before your book is even published. Viral, hook video formats, the POV videos. POV, you're a high school senior who just discovered your school's run by a secret society. The tropes video, text on screen, listing tropes, enemies to lovers, fake dating, who did this to you, the aesthetic video, Pinterest images, matching your book's vibe with trending audio, always end with link in bio to join the wait list. And for this, you can always go to Instagram or, TikTok, type in, book talk, bookstagram as the hashtag keyword, type in books, and you see how other people are promoting their books, and you can get inspired from it. Then you have the documentary content strategy. People love behind the scenes journey, especially as a high schooler doing something genuinely, ambitious. Post vlogs, day 45 of writing a book at 16 years old. Show these struggles, writer's block, receiving the first proof copy in the mail, designing the cover. This builds a parasocial relationship where your followers want to see you win. And lastly, you have the local prodigy, media angle. Local newspaper, radio stations and morning shows love stories about ambitious, local teens. Write a press release. Local high school junior publishers, debut sci-fi novel. Send it to, local journalists via email. And this often leads to bulk community sales and genuine visibility that money cannot buy. So the launch week execution, the 48-hour blitz. This is the Super Bowl of your 24 week journey. The goal is to maximize sales velocity in a 48-hour window to trigger Amazon's algorithm, and every of this window matters, and execute the timeline with military precision. So at 8 a.m., confirm your book is live on Amazon, price at 99 cents in all formats, KDP, paperback. 9 a.m., send the It's Live message to your street team with the direct Amazon purchase link. 12 p.m., post across all social media platforms simultaneously, go live if possible. 3 p.m., check your Amazon rankings, post a screenshot of your progress to create FOMO, fear of missing out. 6 p.m., follow up individually with your street team members who haven't purchased yet. Day 2, monitor the subcategories hourly. The moment your book hits number 1 in any category, takes the screenshot. You are now an Amazon number 1 best-selling author forever. Congratulations. So reviews, promo sites, and capturing the number 1 screenshot. Reviews are the social proof currency of Amazon. A book with 0 reviews will not sell regardless of how good the cover is. And the goal is 10 to 15 verified reviews within the first 48 hours. Now, this tells Amazon that the book is legit and is worthy of algorithmic promotion. And the verified review push. Amazon requires a customer to have spent $50 on your platform before leaving reviews. Remind your street team to leave their review after downloading the 99 book, not before. So they have to download the 99 cents book first, buy it, then only they are able to leave the review. And keep the review request simple, just to honor sentence about what you thought, lower the friction, higher the conversion. And you can also leverage promo sites, book promotion sites have massive email lists of readers hunting for 99 cents deals, use like Fussy Librarian, Bargain Booksy or Free Booksy, $25 to $50 per promotion. Schedule these, for days 2 and 3 to sustain sales velocity after your street team has already purchased. And finally, capturing the number 1 screenshot. Amazon updates its bestseller rankings hourly. Monitor your chosen subcategories closely throughout launch day. The moment your book hits number 1 in any category, regardless of how niche it is, take a screenshot immediately, and this screenshot changes everything. You are now legally and permanently entitled to call yourself a number 1 Amazon best-selling author on your college applications, Common App essay, resume, LinkedIn profile, and all future books forever. So sustaining momentum, the Amazon ads and long-term sales. Launch week is over. Now we build a system that sells books while you're sitting in class. Amazon Advertising AMS is the mechanism that turns a one-time launch spike into a consistent long-term passive income stream. Now the auto-targeting campaign. Set up an auto-targeting campaign with a low bid of 30 cents per click and a $2 to $5 per day dollar budget. Amazon's algorithm will test your book against various keywords and competitor books, and after 2 weeks, review the data, turn off what wastes your money, increase the bids on what guarantees you sales. Then you have the competitor targeting campaign. You can create a manual campaign targeting the ASINs of the top 50 books in your exact niche. When a reader goes to buy the bestseller, your book appears right beneath it saying sponsored products related to them. And if your cover is better or your price is lower, you steal the sale. This is legal, ethical, and extremely effective. Then finally, you have the post-launch pricing. Once you've secured your reviews and initial ranking, raise the Kindle price from 99 cents to its normal retail price of $2.99 to $9.99. At $2.99, Amazon pays you a 70% royalty per sale, and you can update your author central profile, add your bio, link your blog, and claim your book officially. So leveraging your success, the spiky student college application. You have done, something that 99% of adults would never do, which is write and publish a real book that is available for purchase on the world's largest marketplace. Now it's time to leverage this extraordinary accomplishment for everything it's worth. The Common App strategy. Colleges see thousands of debate club presidents, they see very few published best-selling authors, and here's how you can use this. With your essays, you can write about the process, focus on your resilience, overcoming writer's block, the market research challenge, the project management skills you develop, and this demonstrates, character and follow through. Then you have the extracurricular entry, authored a X-word novel, manage a 50-person launch team, achieve a number 1 new release in category on Amazon. This entry is, quantified, specific, and extraordinary, and it would stop at admission offices mid-scroll. Then you have beyond college, the back-end business. A published book proves you're an expert and a finisher, two qualities that most people never demonstrate, and you can use the book as a foundation to launch, your non-fiction, a tutoring service, a YouTube channel, a paid community, offer the book to local schools in exchange for speaking engagement. And for your fiction books, you can begin outlining book 2, the sequel. The best marketing for book 1 is publishing a book 2, and a series creates a read-through rate. Readers who finish book 1 automatically want to buy, book 2 and 3. So week 24, the final mission. You're now in the top 1% club. Review the journey, from a blank page to a published physical product you can hold in your hands. The skills you have built, the project management, copywriting, market research, marketing, product design, and resilience are the exact skills needed to succeed in the real world, in any college, in any career, So you order 5 author copies, order physical paperback copies through KDP at your author discount, keep one for yourself, give the rest to your important mentors, teachers, family members. Holding the physical book is a moment you remember for the rest of your life. You can update your resume and LinkedIn, add your book, your bestseller status, and your launch metrics to every professional profile you maintain. This credential now belongs to you permanently, and use it immediately and everywhere. And finally, write the first sentence of your next book. The author identity does not stop here. You are now in possession of a complete, proven blueprint for writing, publishing, and launching a successful book. Start again, go further. The next book will be faster, better, and more profitable. So the phase 1 template, copy and use these tools. Template 1, time blocking worksheet, Monday to weekends, your time to time that you're going to write. Your biggest distraction is this. Your plan to beat that is this. Then you have template 2, Amazon research, matrix, the keyword idea 1, 2, 3, search results on Amazon, the average, bestseller ranking, the indie author, are they on page 1, and your unique angle. And template 3, your ideal reader avatar, their name, age, grade, level, biggest frustrations, desire, point A, point B, favorite books, authors, their current state, desired state, why they need, your book, and their buying objection, and how to overcome it. So phase 2 templates, the AI prompt library, and a beta reader questionnaire. The template 1, the AI prompt library, the stuck in the scene prompt, if you're writing for a fiction book, the sensory expander prompt, the non-fiction clarifier prompt, I'm trying to explain this to a beginner. Rewrite this explanation to make it simpler using an analogy related to this. You can play with AI prompts, in any shape or form. And you have template 2, which is your beta reader questionnaire. At what point did you feel, fully hooked into the book? If never, please be honest. Were there any parts where you found yourself skimming or wanting to put the book down? If so, where? For your fiction books, which character did you connect with the most and who felt unrealistic? And if it's a non-fiction book, was any concept or step confusing or in need of any explanation? Did the ending feel satisfying and earned? And if you had to describe this book to a friend in one sentence, what would it be? Phase 3, the cover brief and non-fiction blurb generator. You have your template 1 cover design brief, the book title, the subtitle, the author's name, the genre, subgenre, the target audience, the overall vibe, the key elements to include, the competitor links, make it look like this. Then you have template 2, non-fiction blurb generator, the hook, the bold, are you struggling with pain point 1 and 2? Empathy, you're not alone. As a high school student, I faced the exact same pressure when trying to goal. I tried, failed solution, but nothing worked out until I discovered a system that changed everything. So empathy is trying to relate to them. Then the promise, the bullet points inside the book, what you discover, how to benefit one using the specific technique method, the number one mistake most people make, when this, and how to avoid it, a step-by-step guide to this benefit, and finally the call to action, which is don't spend another day dealing with, pain point over here. Scroll up, click buy now, and start your transformation today. Then your phase 4, your templates to your street team DM and press release. Template 1, your street team direct message, message script. Hey name, hope you're doing well. I have some crazy news. I spent the last, 6 months writing a book, and it officially, launches next Tuesday. I'm putting together a small street team to help me hit the #1 Amazon bestseller list. It just requires buying the Kindle version for 99 cents on Tuesday and leaving a quick honest review. Would you be down to support me? Let me know and I'll send you the link on launch day. No pressure either way. Then you have your local press release. City, state, high school student publishes debut book, aims for bestseller list. 30 day, while most high school students, juniors are focused on SATs, you, a student at this high school name, have just published this debut, book. The book, which focuses on one sentence description, is already generating buzz in the, your community. And I wanted to prove that young people have stories worth telling, says your name. Then this book title is available now on Amazon. For interviews or review copies, contact your email. This is the local press release. You can forward to your local, area like newspaper, that you're always looking for these kind of features. Then you can build your email list, your most valuable asset. Your email list is the only audience that you truly own. Amazon customers belong to Amazon. Instagram followers belong to Instagram. But email subscribers belong to you. And they represent the highest ROI marketing channel available to any author. So month 1 to 3, target 100 to 500 subscribers. Focus on converting readers from your launch and early social media posts. Then you have month 6, target 500 to 2,000 subscribers. Your content strategy and lead magnet are producing consistent growth through social media. Month 12, target 2,000 to 5,000 subscribers. A list this size makes your book, your next book launch significantly more powerful. And the lead magnet idea, free book chapters or excerpt, a downloadable checklist or template, a companion workbook or journal, a resource guide, or exclusive audio content. The lead magnet should be directly relevant to your book's topic. It is a free taste of the value that readers will find in the full product. Then you have your podcast pitching and getting blurbs. This is what we call borrowed credibility and why podcasts drive book sales. Podcast audiences are among the most engaged, loyal audiences on the internet. A single interview on a mid-sized podcast, 1,000 to 10,000 listeners, can drive hundreds of book sales in a single day. And what to include in your pitch, research the host and show thoroughly, personalize your pitch and explain why your topic fits your specific audience. Include a link to your media kit. Make it easy for them to say yes. Media kit, essentials, professional headshot, author bio 2 to 3 sentences, book descriptions and cover image, suggested interview topics, 5 to 7 specific questions, social media handles, website, links to previous interviews if available. So if you're able to send your media kit to, podcast show hosts, that shows that, hey, you're professional and you have, they have an idea of who you are and what your book and what you're trying to promote, And getting the endorsements and blurbs. What are blurbs? Short 1 to 3 sentence endorsements from credible people that appear on your book cover on or Amazon page. It's a really powerful social proof. And who to ask? Established authors in your niche. You can ask other authors in your niche to give you an endorsement or forward. Teachers, school administrators, local business owners, industry experts, YouTube creators, or satisfied beta readers. And how to request a blurb. Send a personalized email, never generic. Include a finished manuscript or key excerpt. Give a specific deadline and clear instructions. And most importantly, write a draft of the blurb, for them and ask if they are willing to sign their name on it or edit it. And make saying yes requires zero work on their part. Make it as easy for other people to say yes. So the audiobook strategy, a high margin income stream. So now that you have your physical book and your digital book, the audiobook market is growing at a 20% annual rate and consistently, generate higher revenue per unit than ebooks. And many readers who discover your ebook will also purchase your audiobook. Because nowadays, when people don't have time to read, they want to listen. So creating a second revenue stream from the same content with minimal additional creative work is a major, very easy low-hanging fruit for you. So it's ACX, Audible Creation Exchange. Amazon's platform for connecting authors with professional narrators. You can hire a narrator outright or offer a royalty share. and the narrator gets paid from future sales rather than upfront, a great option when your budget is limited. Then you have self-narration. Recording your own audiobook is cost-effective and adds authenticity, especially for non-fiction or memoir. You need a decent USB microphone, $50 or $100, a quiet room, and a free recording software like Audacity. And your young voice can be a genuine selling point. And pricing and revenue, audiobooks typically retail for $20-$30. Audible's subscription model, pays per listen royalties from a shared monthly pool. Wide distribution, through ACX earns 40% non-exclusive royalties. And exclusive Audible distribution earns 40% but restricts other platforms. So the multiple book strategy and the power of the backlist. One book is an accomplishment. A library of books is a business. The most important truth in indie publishing is this: the best marketing for book 1 is publishing book 2. And every new book you release sends new readers back to discovering your entire catalog, and this is called the backlist effect. So for example, you have a book, let's say it's making roughly like $500 per month in passive income once established, excellent college app material foundation of your platform. Let's say you have 5 books, $2,500 a month. Cross promotion between titles amplifies each other's visibility exponentially. For example, if your book 2 is about a different topic but somehow related to book 1, when somebody reads book 2 or book 3, they want to read book 1 as well. Let's say you have 10 books, $5,000 a month. At this scale, the backlist works for you 24/7. You're building a real publishing operation. Let's say you have 20 books at $10K a month. The compound effect of a deep backlist is one of the most reliable wealth building strategies in creative entrepreneurship and authorship. So monetizing beyond books, the additional income streams. Your published book is the credibility engine for a full ecosystem of products and services. And once you have proven that you can write and market a book, you can leverage that authority to build income streams at every point. So at the bottom, you have your free, lead magnets, social media posts, blog posts. You have your book. Level 3, you have digital courses. Then you have coaching, you have done for you services, and a membership, recurring revenue over here. Each level of this ecosystem, feeds the next. Free content builds an audience. Books convert that audience into buyers. And buyers become, course students, and course students become coaching clients. Coaching clients generate testimonials that sell more books, and the flywheel accelerates with every product you add. So building strategic partnerships and leveraging your network. Your inner circle, which are your first buyers, friends and family, are your first customers and your launch momentum. They are not your only target, but they are your most reliable launch day buyers. Make it personal, make it easy, make it fun, and they want to support you, let them. Then you have your strategic author partnerships, connect with complementary authors in adjacent niches, cross-promote each other's books to your respective audiences, collaborate on bundles, joint webinars, share email lists with explicit permissions. These relationships, compound in value over time, and the author community is genuinely collaborative, not competitive. Let's say you have a book on, outer space. You can find other authors in a niche where you can speak to their audience and shed light on your niche and your book and a certain topic that you have spent hours when it comes to research to provide new insights to their audience that they might find interesting. And finally, you have the influencer outreach. Can identify micro influencers, 5 to 50,000 followers in your exact niche. They typically have more engaged audiences than mega influencers and are far more accessible. You can send a personalized pitch, not a copy-paste template. Offer a free review copy, ask for a social media mention or short video. Build the relationship first, ask for the promotion later, and long-term relationships outperform one-time transactions dramatically. So the KDP setup and the Amazon A9 deep dive. The Amazon KDP, Kindle Direct Publishing, is the platform through which you publish and sell your book, globally. And understanding both the technical setup and the underlying algorithm gives you a massive advantage over authors who simply upload and hope. The KDP account setup checklist. Go to kdp.amazon.com, create your account, verify your email, add your payment information, complete your tax form, complete your author profile, Then you have the book details that drives discoverability. The title, subtitle include your primary keyword naturally, the description, the blurb formula, format with a HTML for premium appearance. 7 backend keywords, long tail, phrases only. Never repeat words from your title. 2 categories, choose, hyper niche categories you can rank, and email KDP to add up to 10 more categories. Then KDP Select versus wide distribution. KDP Select, which is Amazon exclusive, access to Kindle Unlimited KU. Readers who pay monthly can read your book for free, and you earn per page royalties. You access to free book promotions, 5 days per 90-day period, and countdown deals. But the only issue is you can't sell to Apple Books, Kobo or Google Play, which sometimes I don't think it's an issue. Versus wide distribution, you sell on any major platform simultaneously, use Draft to Digital or Ingram Spark for print distribution beyond Amazon. It's better for authors with existing audiences on multiple platforms. So the recommendation for your first book, start with KDP to select to maximize Amazon visibility and leverage promotional tools and evaluate after 90 days. So the social media strategy for authors and building your platform. Your social media platform is your long-term marketing infrastructure. It's not about going viral once. It is about consistently showing up in front of target readers, so that when your book launches, there's an existing audience ready to buy. Your email list, you own it. The most important asset, you own it. Algorithms can't take it away. You can send weekly or bi-weekly emails, providing the value first, promoting the book second. Aim for a high open rate, by delivering, genuinely useful or entertaining content. Then you can use TikTok, where you post, daily or 5 to 7 posts per week for maximum algorithmic reach. Book Talk is the #1 fiction discovery platform for your age group. Focus on tropes, aesthetics, and emotional hooks, not plot summaries. Then you have your Instagram community, where you can post 3 to 5 posts per week. Bookstagram rewards aesthetics, consistency, and community engagement. Behind the scenes content and writing vlogs perform particularly well for debut authors. And finally, you have your YouTube authority. 1 to 2 videos per week, long form content builds deep authority and drives the highest quality traffic to your book. Writing vlogs, how I published my first book, content, and reading and writing tips are your core content pillars. So the riches are in the niches, dominating your market. The single most powerful competitive strategy available to a first-time author is this: dominate a niche instead of competing broadly. A niche is a specific, defined segment of the market. The smaller the niche, the less competition, and the easier it is to establish yourself as the go-to authority. So niche examples that work, home workout guide for busy, high school athletes, not just fitness. College application essay guide for first-gen students, not just college prep. ADHD study strategies for high school students, not just study skills. YA fantasy set in ancient Japan, not just fantasy. And notice how specific these are. The more specific you are, the more your ideal reader feels like the book was personally written for them. The niche domination strategy. Once you have published your first book in a niche and established a readership, you want to publish a second and third book in the same niche, become the recognized author authority, build a community around the topic, create the ecosystem of products at multiple price points. Then only after mastering one niche, expand to adjacent niches, leveraging your existing platforms for faster growth. Then you have your advanced topic research, mine Facebook groups, Reddit communities, YouTube comments, and Quora for questions, your target audience is asking obsessively. These are your next book ideas, pre-validated by real demand before you write a single word. So building a sustainable publishing system. The authors who build lasting scalable income from publishing are not the ones who work the hardest, they are the ones who build best systems. And a system is a documented, repeatable process that produces consistent results regardless of motivation or mood. So you want to document everything, write down every step of your book creation process, create checklists for research, writing, editing, cover designs, formatting, launch, record short screen capture videos of each technical process. When you can hand your checklist to someone else and they can execute it, you have a system. You want to automate repetitively email marketing, ConvertKit, MailerLite, MailChimp, set up automated, welcome sequences that nurture new subscribers for weeks without your involvement. Social media scheduling using buffer, later, batch create content once a week and schedule it across, platforms. And you can use Zapier or Make to automate, repetitive admin tasks between apps. And finally, you can delegate strategically as revenue grows. You can hire freelancers for your highest, friction tasks first. Cover design, $50, $150 per book. Proofreading, $100 to $200. And virtual assistant for scheduling and email management, which is $500 to $2,000 a month. Keep writing and strategy, and you can just delegate everything else. So like writing new books, the strategy behind everything, that is where you want to do it yourself. The rest you can delegate and hire out. And the CEO mindset, you're building a business, not writing a hobby. The most important mindset upgrade in your entire program is learning to think like a business owner, not a hobbyist, author, and the difference between the two determines everything. Your consistency, your decisions, your resilience, and ultimately your results. The hobbyist author, writes when inspired, hope the books sell, treats publishing as a one-time event, and works in the business, gets paid occasionally for time and effort, versus the CEO author, which creates system that produces result, regardless of inspiration, builds marketing infrastructure, thinks in portfolios, not individual titles, work on a business, gets paid for the assets they own, and books that sell while they sleep. The CEO decision framework: every decision you make about your book should pass one test. Does this grow my audience, my authority, or my revenue? If it doesn't serve at least one of those three, you can skip it, And data-driven long-term thinking is what separates the top 1% from everyone else. So the data-driven decision making using numbers to guide your strategy. Guessing is expensive, measuring is free, and the authors who scale successfully are those who track their key metrics religiously and allow their, the data, not intuition, to drive their most important decisions. Key metrics to track, monthly revenue per book, which titles earn the most, email list growth, is your email list, audience growing, launch day sales, and first month totals. At ACOS, advertising cost of sales should be under 70% for profitability. Conversion rate on your book page, how many clicks become purchases. Review velocity, how fast are new reviews coming in. Then you have your analytics tools, free and paid. You have your Amazon Author Central, free, see your sales data, royalties, and book rankings over time. KDP dashboard, daily royalty reports by title and marketplace. Google Analytics, track your website and landing page traffic. Email marketing analytics, open rates, click-through rates, unsubscribes, your audience engagement health. Publisher Rocket, research competitive sales estimate and keyword profitability. So the 90 days publishing sprint, the accelerated path to your first book, for a student who want to move faster than the standard, 24-week pace or are approaching a college application deadline. The 90-day sprint compresses the entire process into a 12-week focus week, and this is an aggressive pace, but is absolutely achievable with disciplined execution. So week 1 to 2, you want to do your topic validation, your research. Then week 3 to 4, you want to outline and schedule. You want to plan everything out. Then week 5 to 8, you want to draft 2,000 to 3,000 words a day. Then finally, you want to launch it, edit, launch, and analyze. And the 90-day sprint demands a daily word count of 2,000 to 3,000 words during the drafting phase, approximately 2 hours of focused writing per day. This is intense but achievable during school breaks, summer, or by dramatically reducing screen time consumption. And the reward is a published best-selling book in time for your college application session. So the 3-year publishing roadmap, from 0 to 10,000 a month. And anyways, the revenue amount is not your goal, but this is a goal in terms of the revenue count, because it directly relates to how many sales, how many downloads, and how many people read your books. This is not a fantasy projection, it is a documented, achievable trajectory followed by thousands of indie authors who applied the same strategies you have just learned. The compound effect of multiple books, a growing email list, and reinvested ad spend creates exponential, not linear growth. So the year one foundation, publish 2 to 5 books, 5,000 email subscribers. You focus on learning to build the business, establish authority, create core systems, build the platform, get your bestseller screenshot. Year 2 acceleration, you can publish more books, launch audiobooks, create your first online course, build your team, expand marketing beyond organic. And finally, year 3 scaling, that's where you have even more books, 21 to 32 books, 20 plus email subscribers. You focus on multiple income streams, passive income, establish authority, begin planning the next phase of your empire. So all this is if you're like going all in the book side of things. But for most of you, just authoring one book at most, or 1 or 2 books, that's more than enough. I'd say for most high school students, I'd say, like 1 or 2 books, even 1 book is just more enough. 1 quality book, and really driving as much traffic and review to that 1 single book, that's more enough. This is if you want to go like full ham into like being an author. But for most high school students, again, just one book is more than enough. So the key milestones on your publishing journey. Every major milestone in your publishing journey is worth celebrating. Each one represents a level of achievement that the vast majority of people, adults included, will never touch. Track these milestones, share them, and they are evidence of your transformation. Your first book published, you're now only 1% of people who have ever followed through on your dream of writing a book, and this alone makes you extraordinary. And you have your next milestone, which is your first #1 Amazon bestseller screenshot. You're officially and permanently a #1 Amazon bestselling author. Put it on every application, college application, resume, professional profile, social media profile immediately. When you make your first 1,000 month, your book is generating a real recurring passive income and the system is working. This is proof of concept and skill what's working. Then you make your first 5,000 month or more. This is where you have a legitimate, publishing business. Multiple books are working together and you're in the top fraction of a percent of people of your age in terms of financial sophistication. And again, it's not about the revenue or sales you make a month, but what that indicates. The more sales and revenue your book makes, it indicates that more people want to buy and read your book. It means that you have really good product market fit. You have written a really desired and demanded book, and you're gaining a lot of new reviews, new sales, building your audience, building a readership. So that is what the revenue goals signify. And the first sentence of your book 2, that's your most important milestone of all. The author identity doesn't stop at one book. You have built a blueprint. Now repeat it, faster, smarter, and with everything you've learned. So your publishing journey starts now. The choice is yours. You have just received a complete, detailed, battle-tested blueprint for writing, publishing, and launching a #1 Amazon bestselling book as a high school student. The knowledge is in your hands, the timeline is mapped, and the templates are ready. The only variable left is you right now. So here's what you now know. You know how to validate a book idea using Amazon's own data before writing a word. You know how to write, edit, and format a professional manuscript. You know how to design a cover that converts at thumbnail size. You know how to execute a launch strategy that triggers Amazon's algorithm. You know how to build a platform that generates passive income for years. You know how to leverage your published book for college admissions and career launch. In your next 24 hours, which is you choose your first book topic, open Amazon in incognito mode, type your C keyword, look at the auto suggest keyword results, find a niche where indie authors are succeeding with BSRs under 100,000, run the 3-star review trick on the top competitor, and by tonight you should know what your book is about. This is what you can do right now. And remember this, most people who read this will do nothing. They will think about it, feel inspired, and then open TikTok. You are not most people. You are here because you want more. You want more impact, more credibility, more opportunity, and the path is clear. So take the first step today. So what your future looks like, the timeline of a published author. This is not hype, this is documented reality of students and young people who have followed exactly the blueprint you now possess. Your age is not a barrier, it is your greatest marketing asset, and you can begin now. And here is what this becomes possible. In 90 days, your first book published on Amazon. Number 1, new release screenshot captured, your first verified reviews live on your page. In a year, multiple books, you've built a great, email list, college application enriched with a, quantified extraordinary achievement. In 3 years, a genuine, publishing business. If you want to, proceed with this, audiobooks, courses, and a loyal community built around your expertise or your fictional world. And in 5 to 10 years, you have multiple, income streams with this, an established authority brand, and the foundation of your book starts, with writing in high school. So the frequently asked questions, the straight answers for busy students, Number 1, what if I'm not a good writer? You don't need to be a good writer to start, you just need to be a finisher. The editing process, phase exists precisely to transform a rough draft into a polished product. Every published author submitted a terrible first draft, and the difference is they just kept going. Your writing improves dramatically with every chapter you complete. And the next question is, what if my book doesn't sell? If you follow the market research framework in week 2, validating demand through BSR checks, and a 3-star review mining before writing, the risk of writing a book that nobody wants is extremely low. The research is your insurance policy. No research equals no guarantees. Good research equals high probability of success. Then next you ask, do I need money to start? The minimum viable publishing budget is, roughly like $50-$200. A professional cover design, and optional promo site submission at launch. Everything else, KDP publishing, Google Docs writing, Canva free tier, Miller Lite, and all the research tools described is all completely free. Next, you ask, will colleges take this seriously? Yes, admission officers at top universities specifically look for students with rare self-initiated accomplishment. A self-published Amazon bestseller demonstrate, entrepreneurship, project management, marketing skills, creative vision, and a disciplined follow-through all in one achievement, and is among one of the most impressive extracurricular entries possible. And we have also shown you a couple of examples of students in a different part later who have gotten to top elite schools and Ivy Leagues, having their bestseller Amazon books as the extracurricular. So the complete Ivy tool stack, every resource you need, for writing and editing tools, you have the ones on the left, you have Grammarly, Pro Writing 8, Hemingway, ChatGPT, Freedom, Cold Turkey, so you can, have your professional manuscript management and book formatting, your grammar style, readability checks, grade level, readability checker, AI brainstorming, outlining and scene expansion, distraction blocker during writing sprints. Then you have your research tools, Amazon KDP in incognito mode, auto suggest keyword research, you have your publisher Rocket Helium 10, advanced keyword and BSR analysis, KDP Spy, KD Spy, one-click Amazon category data, Google Trends, topic popularity and seasonal demand. Then you have your design and publishing tools, you have Canva, cover graphics, social media visual, you have Fiverr 99 designs for professional cover design, designer marketplace. You have Readsy, Kindle Create for free book formatting tools. You have Book Funnel, Story Origin for safe ARC distribution. So the complete Ivy tier tool stack, every resource you need, writing and editing tool, the professional manuscript management and book formatting, Grammarly, Pro Writing 8, grammar style and readability checks, Hemingway app, grade level readability checker, ChatGPT and Claude, AI brainstorming, outlining and scene expansion, Freedom, Cold Turkey, distraction blocker during writing sprints, research tools, Amazon KDP incognito, auto suggest, keyword research. Then you have your publisher Rocket, Helium 10, advanced keyword and BSR analysis, KD Spy, one-click Amazon category data, Google Trends, topic popularity, and seasonal demand. Then you have your design and publishing tools, Canva Pro, where you can create cover graphics, A+ content, and social media visuals. You have 99 Designs, professional cover designer marketplace. You have Readsy, Kindle Create, free book formatting tools. Book funnel, story origin, safe arc distribution. You can generate description with HTML formatted book descriptions. Your marketing and launch tools. MailerLite, MailChimp, free email list and landing pages. Fussy Librarian and Bargain Booksy. Book promotion sites for launch, buffer, later, social media content scheduling, Amazon advertising AMS, paid book visibility campaigns, Author Central, where you can claim your author profile and track sales data, and your author profile ranks high in Google as well. So finally, you're ready to go write your future. You have just completed the most comprehensive high school publishing curriculum ever assembled. Everything you need, the mindset, the market research, the writing system, the production tools, the launch strategy, and the long-term business roadmap is now in your hands. Now here's what you've mastered, market research, avatar creation, outlining, AI-assisted writing, developmental and line editing, cover design, KDP setup, launch strategy, Amazon algorithm optimization, social media, email list, passive income systems, DCEO mindset, all of it in 24 weeks. Your permanent credential, the skills you've built, project management, copywriting, market research, product design, marketing, financial strategy, and resilience are the exact skills the best universities and the most successful companies in the world are looking for in young people. And you now have all of them. And your first move, open Amazon, incognito mode, type your seed keyword. This is a moment the journey from student to #1 best-selling author begins officially over here. So welcome to the 1% Club. We've been expecting you. And over here, we'll end with this quote. The first draft is just telling yourself the story. Carrie, your story starts now, so just go write it.